So we'll continue on this issue until we come to a result, positive result for the governance of Sudan in a transitional period leading to general elections. That's why we are very selective today. They're very selective in hosting two of our distinguished friends, Dr. Abdul Halim Teman, known Abdul Halim Teman is assistant chairman of president of Ummah National Party, and Dr. Yasser Abed also is known, and he is mainly specialized in economics, in the academic field, but also he's very active in the Horn of Africa and the East, most of the countries of East Africa. He was there for quite a long time, and he knows all the problems arising between these countries. So both of you are, I'm very happy to host both of you in this important issue. Dr. Abdul Halim, thank you very much. Dr. Yasser, thank you very much. Okay, let's start by Dr. Halim, because we have a very, the recent thing which is a little bit weird to some people, the unexpected visit of Abiy Ahmed to Khartoum on Thursday, one-day visit, but it was conclusive actually. Actually, it covered meeting almost every player in the political arena these days, almost every player in about 6 hours or so or more, and he played. Nobody knows how the outcome, and how can you compare this or you with the objectives? What do you think the objectives of the visit? Because some people, they believe that the visit came at a time where there is a little bit of tension between Sudan and Ethiopia regarding the accusation or the allegation that Sudan was supporting the TPLF, the Tigray People Liberation Front, and about the Renaissance Dam, and about the Fashaga Triangle, this area of dispute. So among all these three differences, people were a little bit surprised by the visit and by the outcome of the visit, which primarily he said he thinks that the framework agreement should be the right step in solving the problem of the Sudan by the Sudanese people. What can you read from this visit? What are the reasons behind the visit, this short, unexpected visit?
Thank you for having me. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, he stated clearly that the goal or the basic aim of his visit is to support the political process or the framework agreement that has been reached by the different partners of the transitional period. And he also clearly stated that Ethiopia will stand by Sudan at this critical time of the history of our country. And we are not astonished, because in modern world, no country can stay alone, and there is always a need for neighboring countries to build some kind of relationship, especially those countries who share common borders with us, like Ethiopia. And these kind of relationships are important for common cooperation and for also the achieving some kind of peace between the countries. We know that our relations with Ethiopia are deep in history, although we know that there are some tensions from time to time through history, but on average our relationships are quite remarkably better than many relations that exist between neighboring countries in other parts of the world. But still there is a need to better understanding and mutual respect. And also, we appreciate very much that although during 2020 we have a lot of tensions in the border in Fashaga, we have also some discussions concerning the Renaissance Dam, and still there are some details that this chapter is also not closed. But still, we are able to maintain, on average, relationship that contributed to stability between the two countries. Ethiopia, why Ethiopia at this time? We have seen during the last weeks and since 2019, there's a lot of international intervention in the Sudanese issue of political instability. Although it is on average, normally we welcome all efforts that aim to support us, efforts that want Sudan to stand on his feet and to move to, through the transitional path to democracy. But still, there is a perception among the Sudanese people and about these interventions. Some say that there are some positive interventions, and they accuse other countries of negative interventions. And these countries also, according to the perception of our people, they are divided into three categories. First, we think that there are some countries who believe that Sudan is suffering and from political instability. Sudan is also suffering from economic deterioration. And I think that this is a chance for them to make some economic benefits and try to exploit our situation for their own benefits and for unjust and unequal relationship, especially in the economic activities. But for some also, they accuse others not supporting the aspirations of the youth, and that some countries, they want to strengthen the power of the military, and that they, in this case, they are working against the will of the nation. While some others, they believe that there are some countries who have no agenda, direct agenda, not economically, they don't want to exploit Sudan, and apparently they are not supporting the military, and they sincerely want Sudan to move steadily towards achieving democracy, and that the relationship is also based on mutual respect. And this perception, normally people think that Ethiopia fits in this description. This is why we have seen in 2019 the big upload of the Abiy Ahmed when they declared or when they wanted him to address the meeting during the signing of the constitutional document. But still we remember how he was actively involved and positively involved, and he led also the mediation efforts during that time until we reach the constitutional document. So he is back again now. History doesn't repeat itself, but he also, yesterday, he was welcomed by all the influential groups. For example, FFC, the Central Committee, has also declared that they welcome his efforts. The military also, all the documents that yesterday they talked about this visit, and they see this intervention as positively because he talked also clearly about Sudanese-led agreement, and that he supports the dialogue between Sudanese. And he stressed the need to reach agreement between
through the framework.
yeah, through the
He is,
framework, yes. And he also emphasized the need that those who are not included should be included, and that dialogue between the different groups should continue, and that he means also, he also talked about, he met also Dr. Jibril, the other group, and he stressed the need for also preserving the positive peace agreement deal, and that all these things should be managed cautiously so that we can move again and restore the transitional path. And because we know that also this turmoil period was also exploited and manipulated by many groups.
Many interventions.
And, yes, and so some people, they are opportunists. They exploited the situation where this government is weak, and we can see that in the economic arena, for example. There are some also people are talking about agreements that should not be made at this time until the legislative council is established, and there's a lot of issues going on. But at last, I think Abiy Ahmed, he has a good perception in the minds of Sudanese and in the hearts
his
of
presence is
Sudanese.
definitely...
And there is also an important thing, because he came as a prime minister, this is a top official, and he came with 8 of his top officials, including the Minister of Interior, the Minister of Defense, the Security Chancellor, and all these. This is the government. We can see, on the other hand, some countries, they just sent, the intelligence.
Head of the intelligence.
Is the head of the intelligence.
This is my next question, okay?
Okay,
I will come to you back again, because this is very, very... So what you are saying, that the visit of Ahmed was meaningful, and it was full of
respect to Sudan.
Respect to Sudan. Yeah. So, and he is supporting the framework. Okay, let us ask the other side. We asked Dr. Yasser Abed. Yasser Abed also, having heard Dr. Abdul Halim Teman about what he said about the visit of Abiy Ahmed, at the same time, few days ago, 2 important heads of intelligence of Egypt and Turkey, they visited Sudan, but just few days before the visit of Abiy Ahmed. Before that, the Egyptian government sent messages of a new initiative or something, or calling for the factions, all factions, to come to Egypt to discuss. Many people, this is very controversial. The concept of the Egyptians calling at this time, immediately after the framework agreement, this means to the opponents of the invitation of Egypt that Egypt is not supporting the will of the people, the will of the youth, it's supporting the will of the one of the factions, which is allying with the military. Some, they say Egypt, they welcome the Egyptian invitation, but definitely the invitation, when it is, if it continues to be present and they call, definitely half, the big half will not go. They declared it right away. The FFC, the Central Committee, who signed the framework agreement with the military, they said that they will definitely they will not go, because the Egyptian initiative came very late, came after big steps in the direction of the settlement. What is your evaluation of the visit of Abiy Ahmed compared or versus the effort of the Egyptian effort of calling for a meeting in Egypt?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Haraz, and having me in this episode. And I want to say that in the international relation, there is something that is very important. We don't want to put it. Each country has its own interest. If it is Egypt or neither Egypt or Ethiopia, the visit of Abiy Ahmed, the last visit of Abiy Ahmed yesterday, is still very significant. The signification came on time, because the time it has a lot of elements. So he came after the Egyptian head of the security came, and after the initiative of Egypt which is not up to now. Nobody knows if it is initiative or it is just matter of calling the people there, political parties, just to come and discuss and say something regarding the framework agreement. We don't want to put it in approach and approaches and comparison between Egypt and Ethiopia. And as I mentioned, that each country has its own interest in the country, because this is one region, one challenges, one chances, one. So that we want to put it just in differently from each. There is a problem in Sudan. There is a crisis in Sudan, political crisis, as we know. The arena, it is really very complicated. This is why Egyptian interfere after signing the, and this is also another issue, another element. They came after signing the framework. Yes, why didn't it come after that? And there is another element also, Mr. Maulana Ahmed Usman Margas, who came after that, and its delegation. And now Abiy Ahmed came also as a Prime Minister of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a very important country to Sudan, and it is part of the west also of Ethiopia. And as we know that we are sharing, Sudan and Ethiopia sharing so many organizations like IGAD, African Horns, and different organizations in the region. And both the countries, they are very important in the area because of the biggest in population and political wise. As we know, Ethiopia came from very heavy crisis and war between central government and the federal government and Tigray front, and that's all our elements. Also, the withdrawal of Eritrea troops last week. That is another element also. According to what Dr. Teman said, the delegation, it's really, it seems like security and political delegation. Assistant Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs, Peace Minister, Defense Minister, and the head of the security. That's all. It seems like there is something he wants to talk about it regarding the region, not only Sudan. That's another part also. The part of Sudan, as Dr. Teman also mentioned, all the meetings been held by Prime Minister of, because as we know, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, he the one who was the key of the constitutional bill last 3 years. His key point and his key factor in that agreement, which has been signed between the military component and the political FFC. So that's why everybody now, when he see Abiy Ahmed, he see that there is the aspiration of the, as he mentioned, the youth and whatever.
They
remember that good
days of December.
Good days of December, yes, the signing of that bill of constitution. This is why everybody is putting.
But what about the Egyptian now?
Egyptian, by the way, Sudan for it is.
Why late?
They're late because maybe they have their own calculations. They have seen a lot of competition, in international competition in Sudan between European Union and in Ethiopia and United States of America and Russia and China, and so different international community that are in the world competing in Sudan, because Sudan at this time is very important issue, because the stability of Sudan, that means stability for the whole region because of African Horn. You know that this is it's very flammable area. It's one of the biggest areas in Africa which is having so much crisis and problems and war. This is why the international community needs this time Sudan, at least to support Sudan to become one of the stable countries, because the stability of Sudan, that means stability of Southern Sudan to the rest of African Horn.
Why did they exclude something weird? Why did they exclude Egypt? The four, the America and Britain, especially America. Everybody knows that Egypt has an important role in Sudan, in the recent history of Sudan. For the last 100 years, say, Egypt was almost involved in any change, any political change in the country till independence and after independence. Why it was excluded this time, and why did Egypt elevate this exclusion? They introduced a late initiative after signing the economy. It's something weird. Just give
Egypt has its own calculation. He has good relation with the parties in Sudan, as you mentioned, historically, has a lot of relation between the intelligence in Sudan has a lot of, with institution even, has a lot of relation. As you know that Sudanese now, almost more than 2 million Sudanese are, or more than that, maybe it's 4 million are there in Egypt. There is the relation between Egypt and Sudan is really something different than the rest of Africa. Maybe they know Egypt is still studying the arena. So still they don't want to impose their things now before they know what is the direction goes to which one. Because if they want to interfere with America, they're going to be in a problem, Egypt. They want to interfere alone without putting any effort with another international like European Union or United States of America or China or whatever. So they want to interfere themselves alone because they know that, as you know, that the Arab Spring is really harming all the countries now. And Egypt is like the neighboring country, Libya, and try to interfere is got so much problems. So this is why now they are studying the arena so that they can put their efforts at the last times. Still, I think so. Egypt one of the biggest role, one of the keys, which is important, as they've been mentioned. That also Ethiopia is another important country because also as we mentioned, we share with Egypt also our national security with these countries, especially with Egypt and with Ethiopia. Also because the dam is another issue. Also the electricity now, Ethiopia gives Sudan the green light to give Sudan very cheap electricity. This is even Egypt also is going to give Sudan cheap electricity. I think so. Ethiopia is going to play a good role, but Mr. Abiy Ahmed, he mentioned a very important issue and point. He said that the problem and the issue of the political issue in Sudan is better to be solved internally. This is why he's sending another messages to neighboring countries also. Don't interfere in Sudan. Leave them alone. Let them to do themselves alone. Let them to do their things alone. Don't. This seems like a secret message which has been sent to maybe to Egypt, maybe to leave Sudan to solve his problems internally without interfering from another countries or something like that. This is why Abiy Ahmed came in this time just to say that hello to Sudanese. We are with you. We are supporting you. We are together. We are one nation. We are one nation. We are one.
Okay, and we are supporting the framework agreement.
Definitely. In fact, by the way, announcing that since it's been signed from Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, he signed that. Since it's been signed, they announced that they are supporting the framework agreement between the political parties and.
So it could be the business of Abiy Ahmed. It could just a matter of balance between we are in the pivotal point between Egypt and Ethiopia, and Egypt and Ethiopia
they want to say we are here.
loggerheads concerning the resistance.
They want to say we are here.
So now it is balanced.
It's balanced, yes.
By the visit of Abiy Ahmed. Anyhow, let us go to Dr. Halim. The UNITAM's mission, the president of UNITAM, Volker, mentioned that the process is very optimistic that the process is slow, but it will definitely on the right track. He's saying that he's hoping and he's sure that many parts will join the framework agreement. Especially he was targeting or talking about the armed struggle movement like Dr. Jibril and Manawi, maybe they come, in a way they can get them on board. That's what he's not saying directly, but he's talking about it will be good and it will go, and the framework agreement will end up with a final agreement leading to general elections and leading to change. But he mentioned something very important, that what is complicating the matter these days is that there are three conflicting groups in the whole process. The first between the civilians and the military. Yes. The second between the civilians and civilians. Among themselves. The third, which is very unexpected, that between the military and the military. Yes. He's saying that this is what is complicating the whole matter, or adding to the gravity of the problem of the crisis, and to the difficulty of getting to a solution. What can you read from these words of Volker about it is very slow, but it in the right direction, and the conflicting groups? How can we resolve this such a conflict? Highly complex.
Okay, before answering this question, I just want to add to the visit of Abu Ahmed some clarifications concerning the competition between neighboring countries or regional countries or international community in Sudan. I don't think that this visit comes or can be translated as a competition with any other country because we need equally to build our relationships with our other neighboring countries, especially those with whom we have common borders, like Egypt, for example. So our need for cooperation should be balanced. We must think that we believe that our cooperation with Egypt is something different, and our cooperation with Syria is different. We need a balanced relationship with all neighboring countries.
Doctor, this is concerning us.
Yes.
Not, we are talking about those. Whether this side and this side, they have their own calculations.
Yeah,
As they
so
say.
Yes,
yes, I
know.
agree
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
That
But
we must keep good balance. Like, okay, they themselves, everybody knows that Egypt and Ethiopia
Competing on Sudan.
are competing.
Yes.
Again, it's a very
This is,
vital
yeah.
issue of the.
This is what I want to add, but still there are some issues, especially the Renaissance Dam, and this is also here when we succeed to build bilateral relations, we can proceed ahead and build a triangle relation between Sudan, Ethiopia, and Egypt, because this is something that we should work on. And this should not be based on competition, it should be based on cooperation and common understanding.
Economic
So,
cooperation,
yes,
economic
this is what we need.
integration.
But our advice to our neighbors is that they must understand that Sudan has changed, and there is no future for the military to govern Sudan anymore. And anybody who believes that reproduction of military government in Sudan is possible, they are committing mistake. They should stand by the people, and they should stand by the aspirations of the Sudanese nation, because we really will continue fighting until we see a democratic government in Sudan. This is something
That's
that
very good. Okay, what about
about Volker, your question?
Slow.
It is slow. First of all, we are in a transitional period. We have succeeded by the efforts and the work of all Sudanese people in the different states to overthrow the old regime of Omar al-Bashir. And we have seen also the Sudanese revolution delivered a uniqueness to the world that although despite the cultural differences, despite also the tensions that exist between the center and the peripheries, but when it came to fight for democracy and freedom, we have seen cross-sectional support and the demonstrations were in the different regions and in the different cities of Sudan. And this also translates the ability of the Sudanese to unite when they state a common goal. This is what we need this time, because we are moving slowly, but we are heading towards our goals. And I think the framework agreement is the soul and the only political product that is now available, and but it doesn't mean that we will undermine the other partners. We are still working to include those who have who are not convinced with the framework agreement until now. We believe that it is important. It is important also to in Juba, and there is a need to strengthen this agreement. But there are some important issues, as you have mentioned. When it comes to issues like, for example, the security reform and how to form a national, one national army, and how for example, to unite between the rabid forces and the peace factions, military forces, and the national army into and form a one army, one national army. This is a big challenge for us. And also there are some important issues concerning peace, for example, because there are some accusations and this mistrust from the peace factions that the FFC, they want to change the peace agreement, and they want to cancel it. And although this is not true, there is no intention to cancel. No. Peace is an achievement, and it has stopped the guns, and at last, after years of war, we don't want to go to another war. This is an achievement that we want to keep, and and strengthen it and go ahead. But we need the peace to translate into the lives of those people who are suffering in the camps. We want people to feel that peace is in their interest, and it is not just
reality.
it is not just a peace between some political leaders and top officials or layers, and that peace does not mean dividing authority for some top officials, and this is something that we want to strengthen. When we talk about strengthening the peace, we want peace to look at the priorities of the peace agreement. The
stakeholders.
Yes, the stakeholders.
These are the
So
people.
yes, we want peace to look at the priorities of peace. We want security in troubled areas. We want people to feel that their livelihood has become better. So this is another also big challenge. Although we know that Volker is here, and he is the special envoy, and he came of the Secretary General of the United Nations, and he has a mandate, but still we must say that any agreement or any political product should be purely Sudanese owned, and they can facilitate, but it is our responsibility, because we are demanding democracy, but this is not only a wish. We should not rely on only wishes. Achieving democracy also entails heavy responsibilities for us all. We want to forget our different personal or group interests and work for the
benefit of the
people of the nation. And we must know that this is a transitional period. We cannot look and work for many agendas. We should just select a very specific short list agendas and work on them, and then leave any issues that can raise some dispute between us to the democratically elected government by designing the political process in such a intelligent way. We can resolve our differences, and also we need also to accept our differences. We must know that this is something normal. The last thing you mentioned, a very important thing, differences between or conflicts between the armed forces is the most dangerous one. And we know that also people are talking about tensions between the rabid forces and the army. This is something that also puts a heavy responsibility for us to see what areas of differences, because any slide to chaos or
confrontation,
Sudan will vanish, because we are very fragile. Our economy is weak. We have all symptoms of a divided society. So we need to work on the positive efforts in order to bring people together and to close the gaps. But anything that can move things to the negative arena, we must stood firmly and prevent that.
It will be dangerous.
And, the military leaders should also look with great responsibility about their role at this very important time of our history. They should work hard in order to achieve the aspirations of the people and not go for any personal interests and produce any kind of differences.
That's a very good, very sincere call. Okay, Dr. Yasser Abid, let us go also. We still are continuing on the framework agreement. The framework agreement, it involved five main chapters, five big chapters. 2 weeks ago we covered some of these chapters. Now, last week it was the chapter of the dismantling and disempowering the hostage regime. Now, next week it will be maybe about the agreement, Juba agreement, and some people are very sensitive about Juba agreement. When you mention Juba agreement, this causes them, make them nervous. Juba agreement, but Juba agreement, they will talk about, nobody, as Dr. Harim said, nobody is saying that they want to revoke or nullify the whole agreement. They want to rectify also the weak points of the agreement, especially the tracks. And in the tracks, the east track, the agreement created a new problem in a new area of Sudan, which is the east of Sudan. Immediately after the ratification of the peace agreement in Juba, went completely disarray. Many groups, they are loggerheads with each other. They say that those who signed Juba agreement do not represent the east, and they blocked the street, the road, the main highway between Khartoum and Port Sudan. They closed the port, and still they are posing a real threat to the stability of the country. What can you say about amending? Do you agree that people, they should open the agreement and try to do something about it, especially about the east track?
I think it's a very important issue after the dismantling and empowerment of the elements of the framework. And according to me, the framework agreement is one of the important model and the only rescue for Sudan at this time, because otherwise we'll go to another worst of the scenarios. So I think so the framework is the only way is going to solve and going to rescue Sudan from any problems expected as conflicts or something like this. It's better to be support from each parties, for support from all whom they are not being joined up to now. According to that, the issue of Juba peace agreement, I think so the peace agreement is one of the holy issue after the revolution. It's a very important issue, very important agreement. It's been signed by the whole parties, which has been the troops of the military groups, whom they are joining now the government. But the amendment is something maybe being allowed. But the structure of the agreement cannot be just touched like that. But maybe there is something, as you mentioned, a very important issue, the East problem. And the East problem, one of the biggest problem, is going to treat Sudan, treat the national security of Sudan,
yes,
which is involved by another countries like the neighboring countries and the other countries going to use this issue for another political problem. Maybe it's going to harm Sudan in different ways. So this should be treated well, especially the east of Sudan, the ways of the east, so that they have to include all the groups of Bija and the rest of them. So they have to put some of the clause there, at least to support to be part of that agreement of Juba agreement. The amendment is allowed. I think so. There's no problem of amendment. There is nothing called solid. This is not a Quran. Maybe something is a political agreement, so that you can add something, you can withdraw something from that, you can just put something else, you can amend something. But according to the frame, that can be, there is no problem on that. So that at least you include all whom they are not inside that agreement. So Juba agreement is very important agreement.
Open Juba agreement.
Yes, and I think so.
Especially the East track.
The East tract is very important. East
It
tract
has to be-
is
it
very
has to be-
important. It's very important because now it's really one of the issue that can treat Sudan from that area. As you say that blocking the closing the port and closing the roads, and this is a very important economic ways and road to the economic of Sudan. So you can't close that road, and you can't just put every time the treat to the central government so that they can, but maybe they can be included peacefully without any problem. They can be included without any. They can put their terms and conditions. They can be because their problem is not something political. It looks like they have a lot of demands. A lot of things they have called about something about regarding the port itself. The revenue of the port should come to the local, the social responsibility there should be there through the port and through the international and also the mining there, which is the companies which is working there. So that so they need of problems of the development. They're talking about development, nothing else. So that is something easy. I think so it can be included in the agreement, and they can include because this is one of the good benefit for the revoluters and the revolution of December Revolution, because they have to stop the war, and that is very important issue also, stopping the war, because we can, if otherwise we can be like Arab Spring countries that which has been now having so much crisis and war and problem and displacement of the immigrations and whatever. So that is, we have to look for these issues importantly, and we have to at least to each parties should at least come to each others. They solve the problem without any because otherwise if the wars come to us, it will be another problem.
Another headache.
It will be a headache, and it's going to be a problem for Sudan. And Sudan, if it is as we know that the weapons and the war and a lot of now that conflict which has been around Sudan between the tribes and between the ethnics, and most of them they have with weapons, with arms and whatever. So that's another issue. If it is open, we open this.
So they have to close it.
We have to close that. We have to close it and include everybody in this agreement.
The East, they have to give the East
peacefully, yeah. And this is the best way. If we are not going to, we're having at least from the history of our neighbor and our Arab countries, we could have been in another issue, another problem. So at least we have to read the history of these countries, where they are now, where the conflict is, and how they have been now security-wise, and how they've been displaced. And now we are, I think Sudan is having so political intelligence and political groups, which they are more using the mind than using their hands, or not to be in problems. So it's better. It's much better. We have to go to agreement. We have to go to talks. We have to go to the like Ethiopia now solve the problem in South Africa peacefully with talks with civilization way, without any problem between the Tigray and the government. And now they are in peace. They are going to share the government without any problem. And now the things for the only benefiting who the citizen of Ethiopia.
You are right. I agree with you. Okay. Now, because all of the time when we come to important questions, we discover that time passed. A very important issue which is also in your domain as Vice President of Ummah Party. Last week, the Ummah Party headed by Sadiq Al-Mahdi and the delegation, they went to Juba and they met with Abdulaziz Al-Hilu, and they agreed on a memorandum of understanding, as they call it, and it included some points like not to exploit or to use religion as in politics or in governance, which is the secularism. I'm talking about sustainable democratic system and regional system, about the reform of the army, the armed forces, different armed forces to be reformed or integrated in one national army. About the equitable share of wealth and power between the center and the different regions, and many other items, the same issue. Do you think that this visit was it important, and did it get some success? You think it's successful? Will it have any effect on the ongoing conflict? I mean, will it convince Al Hilo to come on board and talk in Khartoum?
I think the visit is very important because although we have signed a peace agreement between the government and the different factions of the Revolutionary Front, but still we say that peace is incomplete because unless you include Abdul Wahid, Muhammad Noor, and Abdulaziz Al-Hilo, peace is still incomplete. So that is why there is an important effort that should be made during this period in order to include Abdul Wahid and Abdulaziz Al-Hilo in the ongoing political process. According to the framework agreement, we know that one of the 5 issues that were left to be discussed in terms of workshop of conferences is the formation of one national army. Abdulaziz Al-Hilo has some remarks about forming the one national unit army. He is talking about specific arrangements about this and the time framework to achieve this. So he wants clear time framework and process that should be clearly stated and not only just a phrase. And this is one. And still we must say that it is important to understand that the secularism and all these issues should be discussed in the stage when people come to about the writing the national constitution.
You are right. Yes. You are right. It's only fair. Okay, we have only one last question. About 4 minutes for you, Dr. Yasser Abed, as the economist, which is the important announcement made by Dr. Jibril, my finance minister, about many people did not grasp what did he mean by what he wants to utilize or to liquidate the about $1 billion in the World Bank so that Sudan can benefit from this. Can you just tell us in 4 minutes about what is it and what are the prospects and is it good or something bad that if we have this is our share, or what is it actually?
Okay.
What is he talking about, this 1 billion?
He mentioned it, Mr. the Minister of Finance, Mr. Jibril, Dr. Jibril. He said that we're going to withdraw that about $1 billion from our account in the World Bank, and which is something it's not advisable.
Not advisable?
It's not advisable by economists because this is your account there, so it should be kept there, and should be kept there because of when the relations come positively between us and the international institutions like IMF and World Bank. We should use this money for the loans for the nearest future, because we should at least take about 70% or 80% from that money. So three times that money. Maybe you can take up to $3 to $4 billion from the loan from international bank. This is at the law of the international bank. He wants to use that money. If the country wants to use that money, it is up to them, because this just looks like security money inside the international bank. Because our account is being activated last 3 years since that Hamdok time. Our account has been frozen from long time, since I think so 20 years, that time of the Hosses regime, and it's been activated after the bridge loans from United States of America, 1.6, and the rest from being paid by France. Those two activated our account in international bank, and also we have joined Central Bank. Sudan Central Bank joined the Federal American Bank, the General Central Bank in America. And this is why it is the steps after the step we should at least join the international institution. if he withdraw this money, will come back to square one. That's very dangerous.
That's very
It's
dangerous.
very dangerous, I think. So if you use this money at this time and he keep it, maybe he can solve part of the problem, but cannot solve the problem because we need at least 5 billion US dollar for the deficit of the budget and deficit of our account in the balance of the trade balance. So this is he has at least.
This is very important point. That is not,
It's
you
not-
don't advise
It's not advisable.
taking this. Okay,
Take
that's
this
I
money
think
in
we are
account.
short of
So
time.
we'll be bankrupt with the international bank, and this is not advisable. So we went to call again. So we look for another bridge loans. So to be at least 1 to 3 billion. This is the fatigue of the rest of the fatigue of the areas. So we have to keep it there, and we look up for another solution to from where we can get the money. Maybe we can get it
Very
from
clear.
the African bank, or can get it from another
That's very clear and very-
Arab
Very
institution.
clear and very important point.
Yes.
Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in this very important episode, especially the final statement of Dr. Yasser Abeid that is not advisable to take any part of our money in the World Bank. It's not advisable. Thank you, Dr. Abdul Halim Teman, Dr. Yasser Abeid, for being with me. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour or so. Hope to see you next week in Dialogue Horizon. Bye.